Hello YouTube, this is Sibbles and Bits here with a little bit of a discussion. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like patch notes are going to drop at a point to where I can actually talk about them. So what I decided to do instead was to take all the cards that they've teased through spoiler season and discuss those instead. Now we have a total of 12 cards. We got these 6 here and then we got another 6 down below. I'm going to be jumping forward and back and forth between them because there seems to be like a theme going on in this DLC, and that is promoting defensive tanky builds and promoting, I don't want to say a different type of healing build, but interacting with healing in ways that don't they don't currently exist in the game. And what it's basically doing is creating a whole bunch of very interesting cards. Now, I should state, obviously, like I said, patch notes aren't out, so I am analyzing these cards and giving my opinions on how I feel they work, because A, obviously we don't have our hands on them. B, I'm relating it to the patch that we are currently on, which anything's subject to change. And C, I'm going to be comparing some cards to cards that already exist, again, in the current patch, but those cards could get changed too. And all other sorts of mechanical numbers differences. But I think that, for the most part, we should at least be able to talk about cards here. We're going to start off with Power Strike, mainly because it's up at the top left. What it does is, every 3 seconds, gain plus 10 bash damage, stacking up to 10 times. So it'd take half a minute for you to get all your charges. And then whenever you bash, you're going to deal up to 100 extra damage, and then you lose all your stacks. The way I see this is, if you're having difficulties, not necessarily just even commons, even like light specials like the Stinger variants, even honestly up to the Tall Boys and the Reekers, this could potentially be the tool that you would use. How do I say this? Combat Knife is good against specials and it works all the time. Power Strike works only, let's say, once every half minute, but you don't even have to use all of it, theoretically speaking. We'll get into that. And it works on a completely different problem. Like, yeah, you can use probably 1 or 2 stacks and just head tap a common and kill it instantly. But another thing that you could do is, this has the potential, depending on how the damage formula comes out, and again, this is where all the conjecture is coming from, that you could stumble a tall boy that corner spawns on you. So, I'm going to go ahead and head over to steady.net, and as you can see, the bash does 1 damage, but it has a stumble multiplier of 40. Now, I have a calculator here that you cannot see, so just take my word for it. Obviously, if you have 1 stack, you have 11 damage, your natural 1 plus another 10, and that's going to be multiplied by 40, and that equals up to 440. Hopefully you didn't actually need to trust me for that, because it's relatively simple math, but maybe. We go over to Ridden Stats, Nightmare, because we're just going to take a look at this in its worst form. And the reason why we multiplied Stumble is because Nightmare is very difficult to stumble things, because they have innate stumble resistance, 25%, due to being a nightmare, and then once it gets to ferocious and monstrous, respectively, they get more stumble resistance that's multiplicative with the 25%. So we're going to take this 440 stumble damage, we're going to multiply it by 0.75, and again by 0.6, again worst case scenario. So we're assuming that we are looking at a nightmare monstrous ridden, and we have 198 stumble power. That is a stumbled hawker, which honestly isn't difficult. Like, if you've ever been jumped on by a stalker, just your normal bash will do it. So this isn't really surprising. Exploder has 60 stumble resistance, 80% though, so it, and I mean, ever since they buffed Exploder melee damage, I haven't been crazy enough to actually go into melee range to stumble them. But theoretically speaking, you would be able to stumble an Exploder. And it'll be interesting to see if it's possible to stumble it before it detonates, because that could potentially save your team. It could save you a lot of damage as well. Wretch, generally speaking, you would shoot it from afar, but you could stumble that. Reeker, you would stumble that as well. Easily, I might add. And then, of course, we start getting into the tall boy variants. And you're like, well, we're not going to be able to stumble those too, right? Well, we're now going to start looking at the weak spot multiplier. So that 198 is theoretically going to be multiplied by 2. And when you do that, you easily beat the tall boy's stumble resistance. You easily beat the crusher's stumble resistance. You easily beat the bruiser's stumble resistance. This is just with one stack. So you might even be saying, like, okay, the crusher, first off, I can shoulder skirt it. Secondly, like, obviously its weak spot is in my face, but that's not the case with the bruiser or the tall boy. The AoE on your bash is absolutely astronomical. It is actually very easy to hit a... Now, tall boys, when they're quick, that is actually quite difficult because you have to have good timing. But bruisers, you can easily bash them while they're doing the overhead. In fact, a lot of people who are much better at the game than me will actually wait for them to do the overhead. They show the weak spot, and then they'll take like a TAC 14 or a Barrett and just like pop it while it's overhead slamming and just kill it in one shot. Now, here's the catch though, is that all of that conjecture there is assuming that the damage goes into the stumble formula. That used to be how heavy hitter worked, and heavy hitter was absolutely ridiculous back when it worked that way. So they took it and put it outside of the formula so that it's just plus 20. But that's stumble damage, not damage. And again, that's kind of where it gets interesting. If the damage is completely detached from the stumble multiplier, then you need pretty much all of your... we're going to assume that it's 100 damage times 1, which might not even be... And this is where it's a little bit weird, is can you have damage that doesn't actually contribute to stumble? But let's just take our 101 damage, start looking at that. And then we're going to start hitting things in their weak spot. That is almost a dead stalker, because you'd get to like 200. You just need a little bit of weak spot damage, a little bit of damage, which you generally have on a sniper build, maybe even Jim. So a stalker tries to get in your face, you just gotta bash it and it's completely taken care of, whereas you might be using an unwieldy sniper rifle and not actually able to defend yourself. All you need is 1, maybe 2 stacks, And just like Combat Knife, you're going to kill a common. So if you're ever in a situation where only one or two commons are actually coming at you at a time, and you can hear them coming from off screen because they make a distinct noise, you can just spin around, bash, and then if you hit them, they're just done. You don't have to worry about swapping to your sidearm or trying to shoot them in close range with your Barrett 50 cal. Obviously, that's a lot more tame and is probably the actual implementation because it's balanced, but I don't know. It's at least interesting. It'll definitely be interesting to see exactly how this one works. Overprotective, when a teammate within 15 meters receives 5 or more damage, gain 20% increased damage for 5 seconds. Now this one, again, a little bit more conjecture, is the 20% increased damage multiplicative. You can't even say that it's a buff, so it's multiplicative, because there's a number of buffs that aren't multiplicative, because you have power swap going into bullet damage and melee damage. You have, what is it, tunnel vision, which is just additive weak spot damage, and you have sadist. Pretty much anything that gives you weak spot damage is additive. Now, if this is just regular 20% increased damage, it's still relatively better than all the bullet damage that you can get, and it's global, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's global either, because some bins don't go into certain accessories and stuff. Now, 5 seconds is a very short time, but it's only 5 damage as well. It doesn't specify health damage, so if you have a frontliner who's always like taking 1, maybe 2 hits from a common every so often, you're going to have more damage. And 15 meters is very generous. In pubs, this will almost be up, I'd say, not all the time, but definitely whenever you would actually need it. Like if there's a bad horde, someone's going to take 5 damage, because that's like 1 common hit. Even with a little bit of damage resistance and Nightmare, that's going to be like 1 common hit. A Stinger like plinks somebody. When you get really high up in Nightmare, Acid can get up to 5 damage. Again, it'll be interesting to see how exactly this works, but it's looking pretty good. Stealthy Passage. Now, I think that everybody's mostly over it by now, but a lot of people are a little bit antsy about these locked doors all of a sudden. And the unfortunate thing is that the ability to have commons like pop doors for you wasn't intended. In fact, it didn't really make any sense as far as I'm concerned, but everybody got used to doing it because it was how things worked for about like 4 months. Then February patch hit, and all of a sudden, Ridden can't bust down locked doors, and we have to go through locked doors. And it was described to us that the change wasn't in the patch notes because it was supposed to release with this card to help alleviate the fact that they were fixing locked doors. But due to technical reasons, card had to get pushed back, and due to, I don't know, version changes or whatever, or maybe someone just legitimately forgot to pull it out, the change still went through, and so everybody had to start dealing with locked doors. Now, there's obviously some certain pain points, like you can have, 5 doors on the start of Act 2. 5 doors can be on your, what the devs call the golden path, that you have to go through, and all 5 of those can be locked on the higher difficulties. So at map 1, it's not really realistic, nor is it practical for you to be like, oh, okay, so we'll just buy 5 toolkits in order to get through this level. And even in later parts of the game, Okay, so you're supposed to take quick slots and buy toolkits just to solve this problem? Like I understand why people are upset about it, but I never found it as too much of a pain point except in the case of okay, well we're going to miss our secondary objective and that's 2000 copper. That's actually quite a lot. But now we have Stealthy Passage and it's very interesting because it doesn't just allow you to disable door alarms. You can disable car alarms and deactivate birds. In the description that was given on Reddit by one of the devs, they literally explode. Okay, that sounds pretty humorous, I guess, but what I'm told is it's about, I think they said it was a 5 second use bar that they're currently debating if it should be scaled with use speed, but it currently doesn't, which is kind of important. And if you are in the middle of this use bar, you cannot stop. And if any damage is sustained, the alarm will still be set off. So it sounds like it adds a little bit of a mini game. My problem with the card is A, it disables quick slots. That's not really that big of a deal. I'm just obsessed with quick slots, as some of you guys probably already know. And the other reason why I have apprehensions is that this card is also an economy card. Anytime that you disable an alarm, you get 25 copper. So not only does it save you a toolkit, because you have unlimited toolkits for locked doors. That's 350 copper if you just disable one locked door. It's also giving you 25 copper apiece. If you disable 4 hazards, which most maps have well more than that, some have an exorbitant amount, but generally speaking, you're going to run into 4 locked doors. This is now an extra share the wealth that you find in the level. So it's almost like a spicy copper scav. In fact, it's almost better than copper scav because if you're unlocking car alarms, what do you generally find in police cars? Copper. Find accessories, grenades, bandages. Not only is this preventing hordes, this is straight up a loot card because it's giving you access to loot that you would otherwise not have access to. Even consider, what is it, pipe cleaners. Pipe cleaners can have one of the FAC spawns that's near the end of the level is inside a locked room. So unless you were willing to pop that, maybe lose the golden rule objective, deal with the horde, you don't get access to that FAC unless you spend a toolkit, which you just spent one to usually take the shortcut to get up there. So not only is it an economy card that gives you copper, but it also disables your quick slot. So I'm like double allergic to this thing. It's still a great card. A lot of people on Reddit, when I was looking for a description on Overheal, because I was hoping one of the devs had spoiled it, everyone's a little bit squeamish about losing the quick slot, but this thing is unlimited toolkits and gives you loot. And some people might say, well, yeah, like car alarms, whatever. I can just like go 30 meters out, shoot out the windows. It won't trigger the car alarm. Well, that's exactly what people said about locked doors, and they fixed it. So yeah, if you want to keep playing like that, that's fine, but eventually I think it's going to get fixed as soon as they can figure out how to do it or they figure out what's causing the bug that allows you to do it. The main thing to point out though is that One person on the Steady Discord did point out this is a no-go if you're a solo player. Because now you're stuck with no quick slot. You don't have access to the prepper stashes. I could definitely see that. That is a point of contention. Also, it likely... Actually, it's a team effect. Does it stack? Regardless, just like with rousing speech, right? Having two people disable their quick slot is definitely a no-go. Um, it, but yeah, I think that pretty much everybody's going to have one of these on their team in organized play. The other thing to note, though, is not only does it disable your quick slot, which has ramifications, but if you're disabling all of these hordes, you're not getting hordes to use with amped up or on your mark outside of objectives, which there's still tons of those. But if you're entirely reliant upon utilizing amped up and on your mark, maybe you don't consider Stealthy Passage because you won't be able to abuse those for ammo and health. Pinata, killing ridden with an accessory has a 15% chance to drop an accessory. I'm going to cut away from this just a bit to scroll down because we also are getting Magician's Apprentice. You have an additional 10% chance to not consume accessories when used. Now, some people might argue that since it says an additional 10%, that it will only apply to items that have reuse chance. But then in the art, Vangelo has a frag grenade and a Molotov. Granted, in the art for support scav, there's a defib, and that's not affected either. So, I would think that them making new assets, though, wouldn't have that same pitfall. But we're considering Magician's Apprentice for 10% chance to not use accessory, to not consume accessories when used. And when you kill things with an accessory, you have a 15% chance to drop an accessory. This is very interesting because if you also consider Hang with his 5% reuse chance, you have almost a gambly economy build. Like, if you're a Grenadier and you already have, like, say, a 15% chance would be 1 out of 7, right? So you are running, let's say, 5, maybe you even have 7 grenades. You're just using those to just solve tall boys. Just tall boys. That's still a ridden, and 1 out of every 7 grenades is going to drop something. Now, is it going to be worth the cost of all those grenades you used? Probably not, and that's probably where the reuse chance is going to come in. Other questions: if a common ridden dies from razor wire or Molotovs, does this count? Otherwise, pipe bombs? If you utilize pipe bombs, you easily get, like, what? At least 10 ridden in there. So, you're guaranteed 1 item out of a pipe bomb. Now, again, is it going to be worth the cost of a pipe bomb? Maybe not. But chances are that someone will be able to use that item. Unless maybe it's a firecracker or something. But Pinata, Hang, and Magician's Apprentice is incredibly interesting. And honestly, a lot of these cards are interesting. We'll keep going into them, though. I'm going to skip over Well Rested for now. Status: whenever a teammate within 15 meters takes 5 or more damage, gain 20% of that damage as temporary health. Can trigger once per second. I think, like, in my medical opinion, this is absolutely insane. And here is my stipulation again. Just like with Overprotective, it does not specify health damage. So it has the pretty much the same wording, right? As True Grit, as Defensive Maneuver. And those will proc through THP, or Temporary Health. So if you have a melee any sort of frontliner, be it a melee frontliner or a shotgunner with buckshot bruiser. Buckshot bruiser might be very good now. We'll get to that. And they take damage to their temporary health. You're going to gain temporary health for that, even though they've completely mitigated all that damage technically. So what this does is it enables. Okay, so how do people generally get temporary health? You're either the melee or buckshot bruiser. You have a sniper with Overwatch, or your melee has Vanguard, in which case they're going to splash you for one every melee kill that they get, right? Now, in this case, is going to sustain your temporary health and help catapult it up. And especially in the event that you might not have a melee with Vanguard, this enables you to get THP by someone else's actions. I had someone who on the Steady Discord said, right, but you could also just use pain pills. Pain pills do cost money and they require slots. So being able to get temporary health essentially for free in those two cases. Otherwise, if you're one of the people who carries in pubs, noted, I don't consider what I do carrying in pubs. I just try to keep pubs alive. I'm talking the actual capital G gamers out there. And so bad horde happens, everyone's getting tore up around them. You're going to get temporary health to help you try and clutch the round. And the ones per second, I honestly like the one thing that may suck is someone might get hit by a common and then get slammed by a bruiser, and so you miss out on it. I think maybe the trigger once per second might cause it to be a little bit irregular, but otherwise the effect itself I feel is very solid. Bodyguard, whenever a teammate within 5 meters is attacked, you instead receive 50% of that damage. Trigger once every 3 seconds. So you can already see here that there's a lot of interesting, like, tanking strategies now. Before, how you would tank in the game is you would literally just run up to a boss and aggro tank it. Just run up to it, hit it in the weak spot, get it to face you, and then that's how you would tank in the game. Otherwise, you can't really, unless you physically plant yourself in a doorway and you are a tanky build, you can't really tank for people. What Bodyguard does is, so long as you're within 5 meters and someone else is attacked, you're going to receive 50% of that damage. This is probably one of the most ridiculous things that they've added to this game. But most importantly, it allows you to tank. Now, 5 meters is actually quite close, and in a lot of the most deadly things in the game, say exploders, you're probably going to be within that 5 meters. But against things like tall boys, bruisers, stinger shots, maybe somebody gets hit on the outsides of the exploder blast, and so you're going to take 50% of that. Or you're behind a wall, and so you don't get hit by the hit scan. Now you're going to take 50% of that damage. And again, a lot of people are looking at this and they're saying, well, you still take the same amount of damage, right? I take 50%, you take 50%. Why is this good? Well, if you're taking this, you probably have damage resistance, you probably have THP regeneration. And so what that does is you are acting as 50% damage resistance for your ally, who probably doesn't have damage resistance, but they might. Another thing that this does is it reduces the one-shot window. So another type of game that I play a lot of is action RPGs like Path of Exile. And in action RPGs, everyone tries to make it a mechanic that enemies have something that's generally called lifelink, right? Everybody's essentially pulling their health bars together, and you have to deal enough damage to kill all of them at once. This is generally almost always treated with salt because, yeah, sure, it's essentially the same. And if you have AoE damage, you just go ahead, hit everything, and it counts as normal, right? If you do enough damage to kill one thing and you hit all 5 things, you're doing 5 times the damage, everything's going to die. If you don't have AoE damage, you now have to fight 5 things for 5 times longer than you normally would because you can't just like kill one, kill another, and then you're dealing with less and less and it gets easier and easier. No, you're dealing with all 5 enemies until you can deal enough damage to kill all 5 of them. Action RPGs rarely give this ability to the player because it's so strong. Path of Exile has a Necromancer Ascendancy that I believe it's 10% of damage you take is split amongst your minions instead. I might even be thinking of a complete. There's like ascendancies and items. The effects in there somewhere. I swear to God, I play a lot of the game, but that in itself is very strong because what you're doing is you're taking 10% of the damage. You're getting 10% damage resistance, and that damage is being spread to things that have like enough damage to actually. Their whole job is to tank for you. They don't care that they're taking 10% of the damage. It might even be 20% now that I think about it, but that sounds ludicrous. So now we have the ability in Back for Blood, which albeit is a different environment, to split damage evenly between 2 people. I always bring up the ferocious Nightmare Bruiser because it's the number one thing that plagues me because pubs like to stare them down. But it's a real thing, and people say, well, if you were just better, you wouldn't have to worry about them. Well, it's not about me being better, it's about my pubs being better. People are taking glass cannon, surplus pouches, etc., etc. They're dropping themselves to like 68 health, and if they take one bruiser hit, they're going to die. Now I have the ability to play as a bodyguard or with bodyguard. As long as I'm within 5 meters of them, I can save them from being downed. That is a saved life. That is a primary gun still in play. And if they're down on their last life, that's a gun. Not only that, if they don't get down, they don't take in-cap trauma. A lot of the game, or a lot of the down spiraling of the game, and the lost cost comes from people being in-capped. And if you can prevent one in-cap, that essentially saves an FAC, which is 400 copper. Bodyguard has the potential to do that multiple times. Weaponsmith, allow this one. This one also has a bit of contention with it because ever since the game has started, people have wanted the ability to freely remove attachments because the attachment system is very similar to a game called Apex Legends. Apex Legends just lets you drop shit willy-nilly, and the reason why it's good in those games is if you find a weapon that you actually want to use, you can use all the attachments that you already found, and it's basically like an upgrade. It's actually a side grade in that game, but I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. Now, in this game, there's actual rarity scaling. So, you might find the perfect attachments on your gray weapon, and now you get to the blue weapon, and you're like, man, like I want to scale the stats and damage of my gun, but now I've got to choose between dropping this scope or I found a laser compensator early or a golden magazine, and it causes a bunch of tension, and for a lot of people that's feel bad. For me, that's actually part of the most exciting part of the game. I never really cared about having, in this case, Weaponsmith in the game, but it's always been a hot topic with the community and it's been quite divisive. I don't know if it's 50-50, but it's 60-40 one way or another. And then we get this. And it's a little, the wording is a little weird in my opinion. First off, I'll start with anybody in a safe room. I'm guessing while the safe room's still active in the shop phase, can unbolt a weapon for 500 copper. Now, the card states unbolting attachments, which is what caused the confusion. A lot of people think that this is 400 copper per attachment. What it actually does is it changes the weapon to a different state. Your blue vector now is an unbolted blue vector. What does unbolted mean? It means that you can now freely swap in and out attachments. You can take an attachment, just throw it on the floor. You can kind of already attachment meal for free or a card, which Weaponsmiths is also a card. It's 2 is 1. So if you take 2 is 1, you can pick up a good gun in your secondary, and now when you get downed, you have good firepower. You have access to theoretically a good secondary weapon. Most secondary weapons are subpar at best. You usually use them to clear commons. But most primary guns can clear commons very easily. And so you just keep that in hand until you find a similar attachment, either in attachment crates or in the shop. And so then you'll just go ahead and you'll swap it out, and now whoever wanted the attachment that you had can grab it. Weaponsmith allows you to sort of do that, but it costs money. But it's not as restricted as 2 is 1 because you don't have to wait for that attachment to show up. So you can compare it to that. I would still not necessarily use either, personally. But there is another thing to state that I'd say the ones that generally get the most attachment tension, sniper rifles and shotguns. Sniper rifles generally want their scope and usually swap speed stock, but not necessarily. And shotguns generally want their stumble and their reload speed, potentially. AA-12 generally wants would want like stumble plus anything, really, and probably a compensator. Oh, snipers also want the suppressor too. And so you'll be walking through, and let's say that you got your starting M1A, and you don't like the M1A. You finally find your Barrett, but what it is it's just sitting there, and it's honestly suffer. It's baseline Barrett, but it's blue rarity, or maybe even white rarity. But you finally found the Barrett that you're looking for, and now you can go ahead swap that over right there. Your Barrett feels great right off the get-go. But you also can't keep doing that, really. If you consider that without the card, even, it costs 500. So if you're doing this 3 times, from white to green to blue to purple, it's going to cost as much as a team upgrade. And in my opinion, that's not worth a team upgrade. Now, if you use this card, obviously it's cheaper, and everybody can pitch in to make it even cheaper. But do you really need that many unbolted weapons? Maybe. That's something for you to decide. But everyone's really excited about Weaponsmith, or they're a little bit underwhelmed. I think that you have alternatives. Bravado, similar to Sadist, but it's got a bit of a catch to it. This one is when a teammate within 15 meters receives trauma damage, specifically trauma damage, gain 10% of that amount as trauma health. No no cooldown like on Bodyguard or Sadist, and it's trauma health. A lot of people are excited about this, and I'm honestly not impressed. So, the thing that everybody says is, okay, I play with, like, even in my situation, oh, yeah, Sybil's plays a lot with pubs. So, what this is going to do is this is going to give him lots of trauma heal. He's going to be pretty excited about this. Let me put it out there. If I'm healing 10% of, say, Evangelo's trauma, I could have Bravado, or I could invest in something like Field Surgeon, which will heal 3 for every medical accessory I use. And if I go for a scav build, I'm easily going to have access to that. So in order for Bravado to save me a med item, somebody has to take 30 trauma. 30. That's an exorbitant amount just to save me one healing item. And you might be saying, Bits, well, you're already going to be having Field Surgeon. You think it's one of the best cards for a scav doc, which you play. You got me there. So, okay. What else is this in competition with? Fresh Bandage. Fresh Bandage, granted it's not during the level, will heal me for 15 and then full heal me at the end of the level. My team would have to take 150 trauma. They're dead at that point. We don't know if it works with incaps. That might help it a little bit if you're, playing a janky build like Necromancer. Maybe it interacts with when you have experienced EMT and you give yourself the buff for max health. It's now been fixed and it gives you, when it removes the health, it also gives you an amount of trauma. Is that technically trauma? But even then, that's trauma equivalent to 10% of their original max health. So you're going to get like 1% of their max health is trauma every safe room. Get safe room recovery. I'm willing to put the testing into it because it could theoretically be good. Because the question comes up, when do you take trauma damage? Because just like with, not Bodyguard, with Statist and Overprotective, like I said, it's not specifying health damage, which means that it's exactly like True Grit and can occur through temporary health. So when I take damage, am I taking temporary health and then that temporary health is then blocked or resisted? Depending on where this is and the damage taken formula and how the damage taken formula actually works, and this will give us very good insight on how it does work. This could potentially, like, if it goes through THP or temporary health, this could actually be very good. I still don't know if it would be as good as, say, Field Surgeon or Fresh Bandage, but you're starting to look at again. Now we're getting into sadist levels where it's like, okay, if I'm a build that doesn't necessarily heal trauma, because generally that would be the medic, maybe we don't have a medic on the team, we just have a melee. This gives you an outlet to heal trauma. Again, gonna have to take a look at the. A lot of these are up in the air depending on exactly how they work. Pumped up, your temporary health decays 20% slower. One additional pain med on the map, 5% health. So this is basically 1/4 of support scav with the 1 pain med, but it's targeted. 5% health. So it's about 1/4 of experienced EMT, but it's free. This is the only other way to scale percent health in the game. and it doesn't use a meta item, your temporary health decays 20% slower. It's hard to quantify that, but consider that temporary health. Let me get my calculator here so that I got actual numbers here. Temporary health lasts, each point of temporary health, more accurately, lasts 2.25 seconds, so 2.25. If something is decaying 20% slower, it lasts 1.25 longer. So we multiply that in, and now your temp health is lasting about 2.8125, so basically 2.75. So you're gaining half a second of temporary health every temporary health. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you consider, say, somebody gives you pain pills, so you've got 40, you multiply that by 2.8125, that white pain pills for 40 is going to last you 2 minutes. Well, just under 2 minutes. It's 112.5 seconds. Barely under 2 minutes. Whereas before, 40 times 2.25, it would last 1.5 minutes. Another thing to state is that, and this is kind of a point with Sadist as well, if you gain any temp health, it refreshes the timer. So another thing that this does is extend the window by which you can gain temp health either through Buckshot Bruiser, someone using Vanguard, maybe somebody gets hit and you get something from Sadist. All of that will extend or refresh the timer on your temporary health and make it last another 2.5 seconds or 2.75 seconds. I don't think that a lot of builds necessarily will go for pumped up, but with all the other changes, and again, we've skipped past quite a bit, so we'll get to those. With all the other changes that are occurring with temp health, I could see this as a strategy to just use temp health as your mitigation strategy for the team. And spawning one additional med item in the map that gives you temp health will also help facilitate that. So I could see if you are, say, a temp health support and you're doing crazy pills, right? This guarantees that you're going to find one pain med on the map, whereas generally speaking, you won't. But maybe you won't, you'll find all bandages. And this helps alleviate that and gives you 5% increased max health. Fit is a fiddle. 25% team bolstered health and 5 team health. It gives you half as much health as well fed, which as an HP respecter, I obviously think is very good. But then it gives you team bolstered health. Now, team bolstered health has been described as whenever your temp health goes over your max health, your bolstered health is like an extra life bar up to 100% that stores temporary health. Imagine you're melee Holly, right? And you're killing things, but you never want people to heal you. Like, the doc keeps healing you, and that's annoying because then you can't utilize your temp health to help pad damage, protect yourself from trauma. You don't get access to numb. Now, even if you are at 100 of 100 max health, if you have bolstered health, your temp health will just go theoretically over, right? But the way that I physically see this, well, I don't know how they're going to visually do it. Lots of games do like a hashed health bar for like bosses that have like multiple health bars. Risk of Rain is the example that I'm thinking of right now. Risk of Rain 2 has a mechanic called Barrier, which allows a exactly temporary health to go over your health bar and act as extra health, and then that's going to degrade over time. Barrier is very strong in Risk of Rain, and I mean, I would assume with all the benefits that Tempt Health gives us, Bolstered Health is also going to be very strong. And now Charisse gets 25% Team Bolstered Health as her aura, or her team ability. So it might be that your team finds that 25% is enough. Maybe they don't feel like that's enough. So then you grab more copies. But if you have Charisse on the team, you can save one of these, and it gives you flat health as well, which, again, it's not just 5 health. That 5 health also goes into the bolstered health, which is arguably, it's what? 1.7? I should know math, but I just worked today. It's a little bit more. But combined with Pumped Up, now your bolstered health lasts longer, so that if you're topped off on bolstered health, you're rolling through the map on roam, and then all of a sudden a horde spawns. You have that available when you need it. Going back up to well rested, we actually thankfully just had this teased or explained. Well rested is 25% team overheal and then 10% team healing efficiency. Now, we're not even going to talk about the team overheal yet. Team healing efficiency is actually very good. And one thing that I forgot to mention about bolstered health that also comes into effect here is that the problem with scaling healing efficiency is that in the early game, it's very good. But as you upgrade your meta items, you have to fit that in people's health bars. So if you're doing pills and you have bolstered health, doesn't matter. You can fit more pills into there. Now, with Team Overheal, what this does is if you were to heal somebody and that heal would be wasted. The example that they gave was if I use a white dock bandage on somebody who was 5 health from their current health, their current max health, they would gain the 5 health from the bandage. Now we're wasting 20. But with 25% Team Overheal, we will take that 20 health. 25% of that is 5. So what I'll do is I'll heal them for 5 plus 5 temp health. Now, that doesn't sound very impressive. However, if your whole team is going into this, this is 40% team healing efficiency, which, by the way, affects revive health, and 100% team overheal. So now, I'm not sure that you would be willing to do it, but you can turn medkits into, like, super pills if you find them, which is very interesting. And it's also interesting, we'll have to figure out if Overheal only applies to heals from specifically bandages and medkits, or if it also applies to revive health, because it's now possible to get up to, like, well, it would be a total, but 195% increased healing efficiency on dock, which normally you wouldn't want because you're going to revive people for full health at 100% anyways. But now, if you revive them for triple, right, because it's 295% total, you're going to heal them up to 100% and then an extra almost 50%. And now they have 50% of their current health as temporary health, which is definitely going to make sure that they don't get knocked back down again. It's very interesting, and I can't wait to test this one out personally. I always say that or healing efficiency is like the best it's ever been every single patch because they always add like 1 or 2 things. But I think that healing efficiency is going to be very good, even if it's just on pain pills builds. Okay, I'm looking through here making sure I didn't miss anything. I think I talked about everything. Anyways, First off, it's nice to get an actual spoiler season for Back for Blood instead of just getting patch notes the day before, the day of. Let me know what you guys think about listening to me talk about what I think about these cards. Be sure to leave that feedback down in the comments below. And if you're not willing to leave feedback, maybe you're willing to leave a comment down below of which one of these cards has you most excited. Because it seems like there's definitely not something for everybody, but there's definitely something that's interesting to everybody, I think. Yeah. Anyways, should be. I don't know if content's going to be coming out straight away tomorrow when I start playing. I'll probably be playing for like the first 2 or 3 days. If I come across anything egregious that I feel like I need to share with everybody, I might make a video, but otherwise, it's probably going to be near the end of the week before I start posting new stuff. And just like last time, especially with them adding so much new stuff and who knows what else they're changing, I would not expect a April medical interactions video for quite some time. Maybe I'll be able to belt it out, but we're going to assume not. Anyways, until next time, I'll catch you guys around.